Welcome to Tales from the Golden Imp. I am Joe Craig, the Impish Skald. Last time, Dandros and the Elven contingency arrived to the legendary city of Durg. We saw Lords Ethan Eldos and Olan Durf set off for Karos. Dandros and Captain Lahti met with the Jarl of Durg, which didn't go so well for Dandros. But Lahti and the elves from the Great Falls Forest were stationed in the western barracks of the city. All the while, an early blizzard caught Jaina, Regos, and Meg. After much struggle, they found sanctuary in the Dragon Roof Inn. Still seeking answers, what awaits our heroes next? We shall find out in this episode of the Calmbringer Cycle. Welcome to Tales from the Golden Imp. Episode 10, The Dragon Roof Inn. Meg awoke in a soft and warm bed. It was too much to be believed, but she had survived. Her hands hurt, but she was alive. Looking around the room, there was sunlight streaming in through the shutters. She almost had expected birds to be chirping, but they were not. Instead, there was wind. Howling wind. It was too good to be true, she found herself saying. Meg stretched in the bed and started taking a look at herself. The tips of her fingers were not black, so that was a good sign. But they were burnt. She had burns on her face as well. There was a tray of food that had been brought up for her. Fruit, small blocks of cheese, and some oatmeal. The food was still warm. There was a hot mug of tea beside it. Almost a perfect breakfast. Meg didn't remember putting on a sleeping gown, but at some point in time she clearly must have. It was a heavy flannel gown like they wore in Malaton. That breakfast tasted better than anything she had eaten in days. She had survived. No doubt thanks to Regos and Jaina. There was a knock on the door. Madam Meg, I have your clothes. Yes, please come in. Meg finished the last bites and rose to wait for whoever was at the door. The door opened to reveal the halfling Sadie carrying Meg's clothes. She placed the clothes on the bed. Can I get you anything, miss? Draw you another bath or anything? Sadie asked while collecting the food tray to clear it away. Your friends are downstairs as well, miss. Should I tell them that you've awakened, or would you like a bit more time? Meg was a little overwhelmed by all the attention. No, nothing else. And yes, you can let my friends know that I'm awake, and I'll be down in a bit. Thank you. And thank you for the kind treatment. I've not been treated this kindly in ages. I really appreciate this. Sadie smiled to Meg in a reassuring smile. No trouble at all, miss. You've been a dream to tend to. Now if you'll excuse me, I'll let you get dressed and be about your day. With that, Sadie exited the room, shut the door behind her. Sadie walked down the stairs to the common room, where Ceri was sitting with Regos and Jaina. All other tables were empty. Ceri, the owner of the Dragon Roof Inn, was wearing a new tunic today, a bright blue one. Regos was smoking his pipe, and Jaina was listening intently. Ceri was telling a story about an old wizard who accidentally turned his best friend into a chicken. It was getting a laugh from both Jaina and Regos. So it finished with the wizard catching his friend and turning him back into a human. But his clothes were another story. They remained feathers. As the story came to a close, Sadie let everyone know that Meg was awake and would be down in a bit. Excellent, most excellent. So while we wait, I'm all out of chicken stories, but did have a few questions that I'd like to ask, if you'd indulge an old man. Regos let out a puff of the pipe. Sure. You've been nothing but kind to us. Let's hear it. Ceri looked at them. Really looked at them. What brings you all the way out here in the middle of nowhere with no provisions? Regos considered Ceri carefully for a moment. We're on our way to White Harbor and then to Durg. We left from the city of Chunda with a week's worth of provisions on the back of that donkey out there. We came into trouble and it was either lose everything or lose everything but the donkey. Even with that, we nearly lost everything anyway. If we hadn't found this place, we would have lost Meg without a doubt. And likely the lot of us. How the hell you stay in business out here in the middle of said nowhere? With a laugh, Sarah responded. Saving fools from folly is surprisingly profitable. Plus we have the best wine, ale, and spirits in all of Calidria. I've got a few surprises to me. That's all fine and dandy, but what's driving you to Durg? You've packed light and were traveling fast from what I could tell. What were you running from? Jaina cut in with this one. Not running from anything, more running towards something. Trying to stop something bad from happening, something really bad, honestly. It's been a long few days. Well, cat's gonna come out of the bag sooner or later. You know how things have been nice and calm for the past 300 years? Well, all that will come to an end if we don't make it to Durg and manage to stop the dark days from coming back, Regos continued. Ceri took a deep breath. I feared it was something like that. You're going to need help to get back on track. They're back, aren't they? The Sentinels? Jaina looked confused for a moment. Yes, but how do you know that? The old man smiled and said, it wasn't over. They had succeeded and my Sylvia would have returned. There was no way that she would break that promise. Down in Durg, Captain Lahti and her soldiers had spent the better part of the morning cleaning up the barracks that they would be calling home for the next few weeks. It would take a lot more work to get the barracks in working shape, but they didn't need it in working shape, they needed it livable. More importantly, at this point, they needed to get a feel for the fortifications of the Western Gate. So that was their mission today. Assess the Western Gate and look for any and all weaknesses on the Western Front. They would have to find out how the enemy would breach the city walls with only a few thousand goblins. They had to find the weakness, the chink in the armor. That all started at the Western Gate. The road from the Goblin Caves led to that gate, and it was the most direct and obvious entrance to the city. One thing was true. This side of the city was dark, quiet, and lonely. Well, there were 4 guards posted at the gate, which was double from the 2 that were there just the day prior. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The Western Gate was formidable indeed. It stood a full 30 feet in height and opened inward towards the city. Behind the massive stone gates were portcullis made of thick iron bands. The portcullis had massive hooks from the ground to anchor it in place. This gate was made not to be opened easily for welcome guests, let alone unwanted ones. If the gate wasn't the weak point, what of the guard towers? Lahti followed the stairs up to the guard tower. She looked out from that guard tower and the window that was there. The window was small, more than an opening for an arrow slit. This was large enough for a goblin, albeit a small one, to climb in. Here was a chink. A small window, 36 feet off the ground, up a sheer wall, was a hole in the armor for the great city of Durg. It wasn't much, but a good archer didn't need much. A good hunter didn't need much. And if the Skald was anything, she was a talented hunter. She proved that during the dark days. She would be able to use this hole to gain access to the city. But she wasn't planning on there being resistance here. This would be the spot they would set up at. They could not yield this tower, nor the partner that was 40 feet to the south. They would need a lot of arrows. They could set 5 archers in front of each window to hit each of the goblins that would try their luck at the window. They just had to focus on the small ones. Shoulder to shoulder, 5 archers. Each one would step forward, take a shot, step back and reload. 10 archers could hold off hundreds of troops from this nest. Thousands? No. Eventually, with enough time, the horde would get through. But they didn't need to stop them all. They just needed to slow them down long enough to sound the alarm. The forces of Durg would have to do the rest. Lahti analyzed the situation over and over, changing the parameters she came up with, the same results. A final stand with one runner to alert the city, and 24 dead elves. They were to seal these windows, to seal the armor. There would be another way in. This was the plan, so this is where it had to happen. Only by allowing the enemy through the gate could they trap them in a death trap and stop the advance. Lahti walked to the window, looked out that window, and she looked out to the road below and the shadows that stretched out there. She looked out, hoping beyond hope that tunnel was quiet and empty. She looked out, praying to Halafaust that all was silent. Another step, and she placed her hands on the windowsill. Lahti closed her eyes, took a deep breath. As she exhaled, she slowly opened her eyes, wanting nothing more than to see nothing. As her eyes opened, nothing is exactly what she saw. Oh, thank you, Halafaust. Sadie got the 5 of them some food and a drink apiece. Ceri had the group all around the large table in the common room. He had a serious look on his face, as opposed to the more jovial face that he had been carrying. He was composing himself for an explanation. Regos had lit his pipe and was waiting for the explanation to begin. After a draw of the pipe from Regos and a sip of drink by Ceri, it seemed Ceri was ready to begin. Ceri rose to his feet and looked toward the fireplace, as if he was looking through the flame to a distant place. Sylvia was my granddaughter. I had been waiting for her to walk through that door for over 300 years. She promised me that she would return when Callisto was defeated. When she made a promise, she kept it. Meg looked over at him. But I wouldn't take you for having a drop of elven blood in you. How have you been waiting all this time? Oh, you're right. Not a drop of elven blood. Something else is keeping me alive. Even I don't know what that something is that is keeping me alive. Here I am regardless. Something in me knows that if I leave the inn, that things would change. But aside from that, I have no clue how I live still. I tried to help the heroes of the calm, but it appears that my efforts were in vain. So, tell me what you know, and I'll help how I can. Ceri looked over at the rest of the group, awaiting an answer. Regos put the pipe down and looked over at Jaina and Meg and shrugged. Might as well. I don't think it would hurt anything to have someone that could spread the word a bit. He wants to tell him about what we saw in the goblin caves. Meg nodded, and Jaina said, I think you should start, and I'll pick up where you have to leave off. Oh, very well. Regos picked up the pipe, took a puff, and then began to tell the tale, starting at the attack on Malatin, how they followed the goblins back to the caves. He continued until Jaina had to step in to tell about the finding of Maris, and just how they found him. Then Regos finished the story of the great cavern and the leaving of the Skald. Without hesitation, Ceri began to ask questions. This Skald, did she have hair? Oh, yes, but they were falling out in clumps. Someone said that it was a woman from Chunda that was claiming to be the Skald. Tell me of her hands. Did they look like bones? They were like bones, from the long nails. Her eyes. Did they glow, or were they just the color of amethyst? No, they didn't glow, well, aside from when she gave the command to the goblins. Then her eyes lit up as well as the eyes of the goblin leaders. Maybe 25 or 50 goblin eyes glowed, and those led the rest out of the chamber. And when she talked, did she talk like someone from Chunda? Or did she sound completely different? Regos and Meg looked at Jane on that one. No, certainly didn't sound like someone from Chunda. She sounded foreign. Maybe Southern Slykin or something like that. I just didn't know what folk from Chunda really sound like. Ceri turned to them now. That was indeed the Skald. She has a new body, and one that is not a natural with the gift that she possesses. Hopefully that will be a good thing for us. Now in the time I've been waiting, I've not sat idle. I have tried to make sure that folk knew that it was likely that Callisto was not defeated. He was stopped in some way, but that way I couldn't tell you. I have a few ideas, but that's more about the skills and talents of the heroes of the Calm. If I had to guess, I would think that he's been frozen in time or something of that nature. Kanto was skilled with magics that manipulated time and space. Ceri continued. Kanto was a wizard that should have been raised to Magus, but got caught up in this whole war with Callisto to go back for testing. Not that the Council and Zaphos can be trusted, there's corruption amongst them. And only that council can promote someone to Magus. What of the others? What were they like? Well, the other ones, I knew most of them. Well, the ones I knew the most were, of course, Sylvia and Kanto. Sylvia was my granddaughter, and Kanto was a wizard from Karos, so they were the ones that I had the most interactions with. All were good souls and couldn't let things go. Someone had to stop Callisto, and it would be a small team to take out the head of the serpent. Kanto was a bright man who spent his life studying the arcane arts, and specifically studying the ability to manipulate individual speeds and how time affected people. He desired to manipulate time itself, which is something theorized as being impossible. He wanted to test that theory and disprove it if he could. He was more than reluctant to join, but when Edius came under fire, he had no choice but to step up. Kanto was the final piece needed in the group to make their chances a possibility. Gurdon was a follower of Belden who practiced warcraft. He specialized in skirmish tactics and was one of the strongest dwarves that I've seen. He was also a Krixian by choice. Now, he's typically depicted as battling with 2 battle axes, but this was a misnomer. He would fight with one, but there was one occasion in which he wielded 2 to fight off a particularly nasty horde of combatants. It was then and there that the legend was crafted. Gurdon was a member of the Edius military that lost the Battle of Geldstein, and saw firsthand the atrocities that the forces of Callisto could bring to bear. His unit was wiped out down to him. He joined the contingency that very day. In fact, he was one of the first members of the heroes. Now, he wasn't the longest fighting member of the heroes. That rests with Hala and Aetherios. Hala and Aetherios were both from Credo, and were forced to bend the knee to Callisto. And they were in the fight the longest. They both worked together to find a cure for a plague that was striking their kingdom. Aetherios worked for the royal family that was stricken by the plague, and ultimately a cure was offered, but got them to bend the knee. Hala had lost her family to the plague, and was a known ne'er-do-well, originally hired by Aeternitas to assist him in finding the cure or getting their hands on the cure itself. Well, this just started a fire that would be the apparent undoing of Callisto that gave us 300 years of peace. Unfortunately, we know Aeternitas is dead. His body was recovered from the collapse of Callisto's fortress. He was returned to Credo. There were stories of the fight that he shared with Linsid, though. And from those stories, it would seem that neither of them were giving it their all. Both were far more deadly than the depiction of the battle would suggest. Hala, she was hell-bent on revenge. To say she was a good person would be a bit of a misnomer. She was good at what she did, no doubt. But her drive was vengeance. Had life treated her differently, she would have remained a leader of a thieves' guild or another criminal enterprise. But Callisto took her family, and that made him an enemy of a very skilled degree. That leaves my granddaughter, Sylvia. To be honest, in the short amount of time that I've gotten to spend with you lot, Jaina, you remind me a lot of her. You seem to be driven by the defense of life just as she did. She was a sweet girl, was determined to do what was right no matter the costs. She was more of a priest than a war priest, but the determination was the same. She joined with the others as soon as she found out that there were others determined to take down Callisto. Individually, each was skilled at their crafts, but together they made a powerful team. I was a prisoner a while in that very castle, so I had some first-hand records and accounts of how the castle was laid out. Through that, I was able to help them devise a plan to get in and get to the heart of that fortress. That was the part that I had to play in all of this. But that is the heroes of the calm for you, in a nutshell, from someone that knew them. Ceri joined them back at the table after his tale was finished. Now, I'm sure you have questions, but I can tell you definitively that the being you faced was the Scald. And I fear to say that you have taken up the heroes of the calm's mantle, and the burden to put all this to rest has fallen upon you. I'm sorry you lost your friend Maris, but know this. If what you say is true, many other lives will be lost before your road is complete. Mag was the first to speak up to ask a question after a brief pause. You say Gurdon was Krixian by choice. What do you mean by that? Did he willingly allow himself to be captured by a Krixian raid? Or did he go to Krix itself? A question I had expected to be asked. Gurdon went to the city of Krix and asked to join the combatants in their arena to further his ability to battle. As you would know, Meg, the Krixians live in a horrible blister of a desert, leading the people there to have nothing to live off that they can grow themselves. These people will raid the nearby villages and cities, taking only what they need to keep their people alive. Now that is a distinction that not a lot of people would understand. They don't raid to take excess, and do not take in a way that will leave people without plenty. They're an odd people, to say the least. They respected those that fight well, to the point that they would abduct people that fought incredibly well against them. To be Krixian, you can be by birth or by fighting in the arena known as the Krixian Proving Ground. You win 10 battles, you become a Krixian. There's this whole ritual involving the swapping of a right hand of Krixian with your own. A truly odd practice, but yes, he became a Krixian by choice. By the choice of joining the Proving Grounds and winning 10 battles required. Yes, they're weird monsters, Regos said. Monsters is a bit harsh. You've not spent time with them. They do not believe in person owning possessions as the biggest part of their culture. You take what you need and you give what you do not, for someone else may need that thing. Instead of hoarding possessions like so many other people, they freely give what others need. Meg spoke up. I'm from the blister of Krix and had to live with these people, and trade with them would not be so difficult if there was this understanding of the culture a bit more. Yes, they do abduct people, but they see it as an honor. Weird people, yes. Monsters, no. Fair enough. I'll have to take your word for it. I've only heard the stories myself, and the picture painted is that they're a raiding horde that comes in the day or night, stealing anything that isn't banded down, and stealing your strongest people to become their own through some kind of brainwashing. But that's just what I've heard. You've seen it, so I trust you on this, Regos responded. Regardless, they aren't expansionists, and so they aren't a concern for today. Callisto is. Ceri inserted before things could escalate. What other questions do you have? Jaina spoke up next. Do you still have the diagrams and things that you gave the heroes in case we need them too? I've not exactly been told, but I have the feeling that I will be walking the halls of Callisto's fortress before all this is said and done. Oh, I certainly hope not. But if that is the case, I'll get them together for you, and you don't have time to wait for them if what you say is true, Ceri continued. Okay, well, you don't happen to have any first-hand information about the Sentinels, do you? Like, magical ways to kill them, since blades and dragons eating their heads have proven ineffective. Regos said with a smirk. Ceri laughed. Here I thought you were going to ask if Kanto left his spellbook around. No, I do have some first-hand information about the Sentinels, but nothing you likely don't already know. Aro was a necromancer of the highest degree, and if he didn't work for Callisto, he would have an outright position amongst the Council of Magi and Zaphos. He was responsible for the Blue Blister Plague that struck Credo. He is also one responsible for the Skald returning from having her head eaten by a dragon. Geralt is the most straightforward. He is the soldier. He is a brilliant tactician, and he's also Crixian by choice. Followers of Belden have to respect his dedication to his craft. There isn't much to say about him, honestly. He's very direct. Well, Skald, you know about her firsthand, so that leaves Linsett. I have long believed that she would be the way that Callisto was defeated. She is only loyal to Callisto so long as the Blue Blister Plague stays away from Credo. She's not from Credo, but they adopted her after she freed herself from Feduria. She was a slave in Feduria and a death speaker. She learned how to kill people and took to it very well. Through that, she was taken under the wing of the Butcher of Feduria, not by choice, but forced to be so. Callisto saved her from the Butcher. But who's to say who is more of a monster? The Butcher is only killed in Feduria, but has killed for thousands of years. Callisto is killed all over Clidria. How she ended up in Credo and being adopted by the people of Credo is something that I don't know, and haven't been able to figure out in my time here at the inn. Long life is great and all, but it's hard to get information about specifics when you're stuck in an inn, even one as great as this one. Meg looked at Ceri very confused. So you're saying that Linsett believes that the Butcher is more of a monster than Callisto? From what you say, she chose one monster over another. Yes, she did so to save the people of Credo. There's something there that I feel a clever mind could use. That is, if she's still around. She's not been seen for 300 years and was at least badly, if some reports, mortally wounded by Viden Varfarian. That's the thing about the Sentinels, we don't know their fates. Geralt, we know, is still around and active. Skald was killed, but is back, it seems. Linsid was badly wounded and never seen again, but nor were the heroes of the Calm. The Council of Magi consider Harrow active, though he's not been seen in 300 years either. If Harrow lives, others could return even if they are dead, with as powerful of a necromancer as Harrow is. Unless Necropus prevents it. With another puff of the pipe, let's pray to Necropus that he keeps any of them that he has. If what you say is true, and what we know is true, that would mean that Necropus let the Skald free. Why would he stop there? Well, that is because he never had the Skald. Now, that is my presumption. I assume that Harrow intervened with the transition of the soul to the gates of Necropus. By doing so, prevented him from processing the soul in a way that he normally does. If I'm correct, then that strange jar that you mentioned was the container that held the Skald's soul. There could be such a jar for each of the Sentinels, and we would have to destroy those to fully destroy the Sentinels. And what if there is one for Callisto? And if that's the case, how did the goblins know to do what they did? There's something that I can't speak to. I don't understand necromancy well enough to speculate. But you do understand magic well enough to get to that point. How? Regos countered. Ceri waved a hand above him. A theory only. I've collected books over the years from travelers, forgetting things and not coming back for them. You could not say that I'm one that holds any active ranks as a wizard. Was once a student, but no longer. Regos laughed a bit. I can relate. If you're not using those books, could I get a few of them to see if I could puzzle out anything new? Of course. I'd be more than happy to help in that way. Down in Durg, Dandros was not having a great time. Hauled away to the dungeons. The dungeons were placed below the Temple of Belden, with vents to allow the prisoners to hear the sermons. A fact that was not forgotten by the priest of Belden. Dandros agreed that he needed to re-solidify his faith, but not like this. Not below the temple, but in the forge, the truest area of the temple. As a priest shouted to the congregation, "What is your craft?" From the next cell he heard, "Well, my craft is illegal here, and I ain't it. I'm a good little follower of Belden, you lot can let me right on out." The voice was feminine, that had some gruff to it. If this woman had been anywhere else, Dandros could picture it would be on a ship. She certainly had the mouth to pair her up with such a life for sure. Belden would laugh at the situation, Dandros believed, when the priest shouted what the congregation's professions was a second time after the sermon. The same voice called out, "A damned thief is right what I am. Right good one, too." She followed that with a laugh that would cut glass. Call from deeper in the dungeons shouted out, "Shut it, Migs. No one wants to hear about it. A damned good thief got caught. You're a caught thief and that's that. I'll be surprised if you ever steal again." Migs responded, "At least I wasn't caught in a brothel with my trousers around my ankles." That got a retort of laughter from a lot of the other inmates. Once the sermon was over, it was food time, and Dandros was thankful for that. He was also oddly surprised at how the cells were quiet during the sermon. The priest had a great voice and gave a lively sermon. Dandros didn't know him. Dandros' cell was right across the way from Migs, so while they were waiting for the grub, he had to know. Migs, wasn't it? "Yeah, that's my name. And no, I'm not going to show you nothing to help you out." Migs looked out the bars over to Dandros' cell. "What you want?" Dandros laughed a bit, not asking for your goods, just curious on why you were so quiet during the sermon. You clearly have no love for the word of Belden. Why'd you stay so quiet? Migs laughed at Dandros. First time, eh? Oh, love. They don't take kindly to you talking over the sermons. Sometimes they don't feed you, and that's when you're lucky. And if you're not lucky, well, they beat you. So what are you in for, all fresh-eyed and bushy-tailed? Migs asked Dandros playfully. Oh, suppose you could say I mouthed off to the Jarl. Migs laughed, and a few other prisoners did as well. Oh, you can't stop there. Let's hear it. What'd you tell him? Dandros smiled at himself. Basically, go back to the temple and apply himself. Then there was the whole, I hope you choke on your crown bit. Migs laughed hard at this one. Oh, I have to remember that one. You didn't actually tell him to choke on his crown, did you? Oh, yes, he did. And that's what has him in such a bad place. The guard came in with a food tray. Guard was passing out bowls of soup and chunks of bread. As the guard gave Dandros a bowl of stew. You might be here for a while. I'm not seeing the Jarl. That upsetting some time. Dandros couldn't help but be a bit embarrassed at the point. He thanked the guard for the food and wondered what he was going to do to get out of the situation. He couldn't help stop the scald in a prison cell. He had let his mouth get him in this mess. Perhaps it could get him out of it. What are the chances of him letting me out anytime soon? Oh, he'll let you out once he's cooled off. Jarl's like that. He blows his top sometimes and then just throws someone down here. He thinks hearing a few sermons will do a person some good. But if you want, I can send down a priest to talk with you. Sometimes that helps the situation. No promises, though. But priests are always eager to speak to the condemned. The guard was giving Migs some bread and stew at this point. Don't do like this one here with the priest. Let's just say she was inappropriate in trying to get out of here. What? Well, he was kind of cute for a dwarf. Had a beard on him that you could really wrap your hands in. I'd have been able to hold on for hours with a beard like that. He's a priest, for crying out loud, the guard added as he moved on down the line. There's something about Migs that intrigued Dandros. For some reason, he was placed here in this cell with only Migs to really speak to. He thought to himself as to why. Why that had been done. Could Migs be helpful in this whole ordeal? He would have to find out more information about Migs, or see if she was another piece that needed to be placed on the board. Or perhaps she had seen something in her travels. He didn't know, but Dandros would find out. He had that feeling. It was good to have those feelings once more. The mint was lively when Lahti arrived. There were the few soldiers that she was on leave with. The thing about Durg was that it was always alive. With it being an underground city, it was constantly being worked by someone. Many places were all open at all hours of the day, with just different people running it, be it a shop or a restaurant. The Mint was one such place. Yes, it was owned by someone, but the place was operated 24 hours a day, which was convenient for the soldiers of Veldis. They had indeed found the place to have a desirable mix of foods that they enjoyed. For Lahti, there was something about potato and leek soup that made her feel warm. The air down in Durg was at a constant temperature, but it was a little chilly for her tastes. Here, Lahti was able to pick up on the state of Durg and how comfortable the city was. It would be a tragedy if the city got hit unaware. The guards were lackadaisical in their duties and only worried about petty crimes, which, to be honest, was most of what Durg had to worry about these days. Well, that would be until Devalton came knocking. Lahti got herself a bowl of potato and leek soup and a couple of meat pies. She would eat one here and keep the other one for tonight when she was on duty. She enjoyed being around when Sampson Dimadov was working. He kept the place so lively, coming out talking with the patrons, stirring the pot here and there. It was that very first time that she came in that the two had met each other. Sampson came right up to her and asked what she was doing in Durg. He could tell that she was a soldier and a foreign one at that. She had said that they were there to protect the western flank from a potential attack. Sampson sat down with her right then and there to get the details and showed general interest. He was helpful in locating suppliers for the barracks as well as folks to talk to in case the attack was a real thing. Lahti learned that each of the districts were governed a little differently, and some would take the news of a potential attack a little bit more serious than the Jarl. But most would follow the marching orders of the Jarl. It was also from Sampson that she realized just how much trouble Dandros could be in. This particular Jarl was not a big fan of folks that spoke out against him. Her opinion of the Jarl was on a steady decline from talking with the people of Durg. But it wasn't the people of Durg's fault. Corrupt politics is something of a common nature. All people were susceptible to it. This corruption that the Jarl was guilty of was luxury of the post. He had gotten fat, dumb, and happy with his post. Hopefully it wouldn't cost the people of Durg their city. Being an outsider here, Lahti couldn't help but be amazed by the carvings, the sculptures, the fountains, and all the other works that the city had to offer. Long has she admired the fact that coins were so individualistic that came from Durg. Being here now in Durg, she didn't think that there had been a similar coin pass her hands the whole time. Coins were minted here in Durg for most of Calidria. Part of what the apprentices would do would be to carve the coins to finish them. They were minted about 75% of the way and then finished by apprentices. She had kept one of the coins that had put symbols for egotistical and idiot on the rim of the coin, with the current Jarl's impression on it. Perhaps this would be her lucky coin. It certainly reflected how she felt about Jarl Bordoli. She washed down her meal with a pale ale. The happiness was incredible. It was a great meal, but it was getting a little old. There was a lot of items on the menu. Perhaps she would be a little adventurous next time. Of course, she said that last time as well. As she mused over the state of Durg, she went over the list of all the things they needed to do to get the barracks functional, all the while monitoring the gate. The trick was to make the gate look as if it wasn't being monitored. She had to draw them in there. For if they knew other ways into the city, she was yet to learn of them. That's where the city's underworld would come in handy. There were ways to smuggle goods in and out of the city. They would know it. That was her next adventure, trying to get an in with the underworld as a soldier from another land. It wouldn't be easy, but she had to try. There were other kinks in the armor. She had to find them if she was going to keep these people safe. Sure, once the military of Durg was put to bear on an invasive force, they would put it down in quick order. But how much time was needed to mobilize them? What damages could be done in that time? What would be left of the city after such an attack? These were all questions that she had to find answers for, and she would. It all started here, at the Mint. But the next road would be a darker one. Lahti finished her ale, packed up her meat pie, focusing on the task at hand. The first step would be to not look like a soldier. The next would be to find the unsavory elements. Perhaps a visit to Dandros would help with that. She was still getting a feel for the city, but a city it was. The beast had an underbelly, and she would find it. Getting up from the table and heading out, she set out to go shopping. Lower corner, Krix.
All that fall under the great eye of Krix belongs to Krix. We are his, just as all things are his. For without him, we would have nothing.
Krixian sang. Krix is the god of the unending summer and is worshipped by the Krixians. The symbol for Krix is a flaming sun with an eye in it. The symbology for Krix continues from there. The Krixians believe that the sun is the eye through which he watches everything. They also believe that everything under the sun is something that belongs to only Krix, and thus they have no actual possessions. The Krixians are a warrior people, and so much of their life is forged around the worship and belief in Krix. So it's hard to talk about one without talking about the other. The warrior aspect of the Krixians is through a belief that only that which is strong will survive the harsh sunlight. That sunlight is known as the judgment of Krix. Through this, they become fearsome warriors. If Krix was a being, he is seen as the Red Man, a tall man with red skin from head to toe, a product of the desert that is the blister of Krix. The story goes that he was a red-skinned man from the mountains to the east of the blister of Krix. He was exiled by his people, and that put him in the blister itself. There in the desert he found a source of clay, and he used that clay to make the first Krixians. He made them to watch over him while he slumbered at night. As Krix made them, he also provided for them. He would give them anything they needed. But the desert being what it was, you were forced to go without luxuries and wants. As a result, the culture of Krixians became a people that possessions are meaningless. There are things you need, and you take those, but you know that they're not yours. It all belongs to Krix. Myths and rumors. What is a god without a good bit of story and lore about them? The god Krix is one such that cannot be proven to have actually existed. Beyond his sheer existence, here's a list of a few other stories and myths that surround him. Krix gave his right hand to the greatest warrior that protected him as he slumbered. But this was not a Krixian, but another exile from the mountains to the east. Because the warrior was not Krixian, Krix cut off his own right hand and replaced the lost hand of the woman. In doing so, Krix declared that she was Krixian, and the right of adoption was formed. When Krix was ready for the eternal slumber, he blotted out the sun with a ritual, closing his eye to allow him to transcend to the heavens. Solar eclipses are worshipped as days of taking, and the honor will perform ritual combat to see which of them would be honored with the great mantle of Anglemere, which later became a symbol for the champion of the Grand Arena. Krix was the honor guard to Anglemere the Great, and his exile from the Myrto Mountains was really to cover up for him guarding the resting place for the great worm Anglemere. A weapon mastered by a Krixian is the closest thing to a possession that one will ever have. To lose that weapon in a land that knows not Krix is seen as a dishonor. It is said that Anglemere created the blister of Krix with his mere presence. The great city of Krix was built as a place for the Krixians to train, rest, and grow, while those that were called guarded the resting place of Krix and possibly Anglemere. The stories have evolved over the tellings. Finally, there's also rumors that Krix could possibly be Kalen. Priesthood. Priests of Krix are truly powerful warriors. They are forged by combat and feel that it is the only way to become strong enough to survive the cruel, unending summer sands. The process to become a priest is a grueling one involving surviving the desert with only what you were born with to start out on their way. They must survive the desert long enough to forge a weapon, take only what is needed to keep them alive, find clay to make a pot to hold water, and to survive the full force of the sun until the sun is blocked out during the day. This can be due to an eclipse, which is seen as a great honor, down to a powerful enough storm to blot out the sun, or even surviving in the shadow of a beast large enough to block out the sun. The latter is the scariest prospect, because many times that beast will be a hungry red dragon down from the Myrto Mountains, looking for a meal. Priests have no fancy ranks like many other priests. They are all simply children of Krix. Krix is only worshipped by the Krixians to common knowledge, but it would be possible for some warriors to see Krix as an idol. But this is unconfirmed. Each priest is branded by their holy symbol, a flaming sun with an eye inside of it. The eye is also one of a vertical pupil. Holy days in worship. The holiest of days is seen as the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year. That is the day of the annual invitation for any and all who wish to become a Krixian, is welcome to the city of Krix to battle in the Grand Arena. This is different from the adoption process. This is an open invitation for a combat that lasts from sunrise to sunset, and all those that are alive at the end of it will become Krixian. Other holy days are during eclipses, which are seen as great honors, for they are the days in which the gateway to Krix is open, and it is believed that he walks amongst the people during this time, no matter how short. If someone is becoming a priest during one of these events, it's seen as a great honor and a sign of greatness for the priest. And travelers, that's where we'll leave our journey this time. Jaina, Meg, and Regos still in the legendary Dragon Roof Inn. Commander Lahti has started her work on the western front of the city of Durg and trying to get the barracks back in working order. Dandros has seemed to have made a friend while locked up in a dungeon in Migs. But where's the Skald and her forces? Are more forces incoming? What other secrets does Ceri have? Maybe we will find out in the next episode of the Calmbringer Cycle. I want to thank Adrian Von Ziegler for the privilege to use his music to make this story that much better. And for this month's travelers, I will be making the legendary dwarven meat pies. With that said, I want to thank you for listening. If you wish to support the podcast, a rating where you find the podcast would mean a lot, or a simple thumbs up in the YouTube space, or subscribe if you really like it. If you want to support a bit more and get the recipes of Calidria in your kitchen, as well as additional lore content, please support me over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/goldenimpin. Signing up will give you access to the Discord server. I'm building a great community over there, but I can only do that with you. So won't you join us and join the conversation? If you want to follow me outside the podcast space, you can find me on Blue Sky at Impish Skald. I am Joe Craig, the Impish Skald. Thank you for listening, and remember, you've been scalded.